Hello and welcome back to Titanium Geek. I realise it's been quite some time since anything was posted or recorded by myself for that matter, but hey, we've all been a little bit busy at the moment, as you can see by the length of the hair. So I have two bikes here that are desperately in need of their drivetrains cleaning. One of them is my trusty electric Hummingbird, and the other is my Scott endurance bike, the Addict. Now, both perfectly reasonable bikes, and most people don't honestly put that much thought into what they're going to be cleaning their bike with. As long as it's a bike cleaner, it's sort of safe for the environment, and from a reputable brand, most people are happy. However, muc-off has released a new product, eBike Dry Chain Cleaner, specifically for bikes such as this with electric drivetrains or with rubber belt-based drivetrains. Now, the specifics here is that basically you're not going to be using water. You spray on the dry chain cleaner. As you can see, I've had a bit of trouble saying that on previous takes. Agitate with a brush and then wipe off. Now, what I want to know is, is this needed? There's a small part of me is inclined to say, certainly with a sealed unit like on the Hummingbird, probably not actually. But naturally, people are automatically going to assume water, electricity, not good bedfellows. But that aside, whether it's a marketing gimmick or not, the question is, how does it perform? So we've got muc-off's regular drive cleaner here, and we're going to put that on the foil at the same time. These bikes have probably not been cleaned for at least 6 months now, so they're very much overdue. We're going to follow the manufacturer's instructions, so no water on the Hummingbird, and giving a regular blast with the hose pipe, again after agitation with the regular muc-off drive cleaner, and we'll see how things go. So, with that in mind, let's get spraying. Okay, so eBike Dry Chain Cleaner. Direction for use: using a well-ventilated area. Well, we're outdoors, so that should cover that. Shake vigorously and apply to the selected area. Now use a brush. Personally, I quite like to use an old paintbrush because I can really get into the nooks and crannies there. And use a brush or rag to agitate stubborn contaminants. Your chain is now clean and ready for lubrication or for protective treatments. If you're unsure of the surface compatibility or your bike is a non-factory finish, admittedly this came from ProDrive themselves, but thankfully it is their factory finish, so we should be safe. Please test on a small, inconspicuous area first. So I think that's quite interesting that we're just going to spray it on, agitate, and then leave it. That's interesting. I'm not quite sure how I feel about just not taking something off at all, but we'll find out. So muc-off has an interesting catch on the back of their spray can, which I think I need to break before can be used. There we go. Right, click it out, let's give it a go. And frankly, for the chain and everything like that, I'm going to go much wider, make sure everything's hit nicely. Spin the chain around a bit. I find that the rims on these really get hit because it's such a small bike, so let's give that a go. and it's really quite wet. Moving around the chain and stuff. All seems good. Sometimes I actually think that a bit of a wider spray can be beneficial here. I almost find up to the point I want to put it on my brush. It feels really weird just spraying it on and not doing anything else to it. I mean, you can still see clumps at the moment on the chain. I must confess, it feels like I've already used half the can already. And it does seem to evaporate quite rapidly. Seems to work better if you spray a section at a time. Make sure I've got on the other side. I mean, it's nice when you can see the muck physically coming off it, but... Right. Well, that's the Hummingbird sorted as the first off with the dry chain cleaner, and it does exactly what it says on the tin. Everything, even the brush afterwards, is completely dry, but you still get, oh no, I'm covering myself in muck from the brush now. So it certainly transferred things from A to B, but it feels strange to be spraying something on the bike and then have it evaporate like that. So I mean, it definitely cleaned the chain well, but the rest of the bike is still dirty. So let's try the regular muc-off now. So brush again. We all know exactly where we are with straightforward muc-off drive cleaner. So still nevertheless, we're going to shake vigorously and spray all over the drive chain, but now we're going to be covering everything: cassette, chain rings, chain, derailleurs, the whole bike basically. Leave for a minute, which we haven't had to do with the dry chain cleaner, and then agitate with the brush as required. We could use a chain cleaning tool, but because of what we're doing here for this test, obviously we're going to stay with the manual approach. So if we manage to switch the cap on. Right, off we go. I mean, we're certainly getting a lot more coverage here. Now, this bike's not been done for a while, so we're certainly going to need to agitate now. Okay, so we've sprayed everything on. Here's probably one of the bigger differences with the dry chain cleaner. I've now got to wait for a minute for this to properly get in and work, and then agitate it off. Somehow it feels more wasteful when you see the pools of a drive chain cleaner sitting there. Now obviously we've got more to clean here than we did with the Hummingbird, but one of the things that I don't like about cleaning a bike is the brown muck that just coats everything as you're going around it. And I wonder how the drive chain cleaner, the dry version, is going to be able to cope in the same way. You know, we're still going to have, what's it going to do with this muck? Because it felt strange with it just evaporating off like that. Whereas here I've got that reassurance, if you will, if that's the right word, that I'm now going to clean it off. Dry chain clean or not, I always find the most satisfying part of sorting out my chain is getting to hose it off. But as the name suggests, our dry chain cleaner does have one major advantage, that there's no need to put anything to prevent water ingress on afterwards. And also, for that matter, you don't have a wet drive. So definitely swings and roundabouts here. So there we have it, two relatively clean bikes. I'll be honest, I didn't expect to like the dry chain cleaner, but for an e-bike where you've got your gears and internals enclosed, so you've got much less to have to clean, I actually think this is a good idea. Realistically, your bike is waterproof anyway, so you can use the regular chain cleaner if you want, but actually there are much less nooks and crannies, so this seems, you know, actually quite fit for purpose in that sense. And I started off this review not being particularly, you know, pro this. I thought it was a bit of a marketing ploy, but I can see that it is making life easier in this scenario. Ecologically speaking, I seem to have used more, maybe because I'm not familiar with it in the same way, but I think that it's probably going to be more cost effective using our regular drive chain cleaner, but then you also don't end up with the wet drive afterwards. So I think there's room for both of these in your bike stables. Right, I better get some chains oiled. Take care all.